For the past decade, all across the country, walkers have been seeing goats alongside hiking trails and in parks. These goats are working. Their job is to eat any vegetation that they can reach, but more specifically, to eat the leaves of buckthorn, one of our most aggressive, invasive species. Here I am walking along a hiking trail in my local park. You can see how buckthorn forms a dense thicket on both sides of the trail. Buckthorn doesn't have any natural controls, no disease, insects, or predators to check its spread. Without these natural controls, buckthorn chokes out our native vegetation, and it degrades the environment for birds and other wildlife. That's where these goats come in. Natural resource managers enlisted goats to battle our buckthorn invasion. Goats prefer to eat plants and shrubs that have a broad leaf. Fortunately for us, that includes buckthorn and other invasive species. If you're out enjoying a walk through your local park, don't be surprised if you encounter a herd of goats. For this video, I filmed the goats I encountered while I was walking in my local park. Goats are certainly entertaining. If you do encounter goats, make sure you stop and watch them as they go about their job combating invasive species. During my goat encounter, I was surprised to see how common it was to see goats standing on their hind legs. A mature goat, standing on its hind legs, can easily reach a branch that's 5 or 6 feet above the ground. Unlike cattle and sheep, goats actually prefer to eat at their head height or above. Sometimes, the newest and tenderest leaves are at the top of a shrub like buckthorn. Here, one of the older, larger goats is aggressively feasting on these buckthorn leaves. To get to the highest leaves, he stands on his hind legs and pushes the buckthorn branch down with his front legs. By bending the branch down, the younger, smaller goats get a chance to feed on these leaves too. I was also surprised to see that goats don't just limit themselves to leaves. Here, one of the goats decided to eat the bark off a tree. I didn't always see goats actively feeding. Sometimes the goats take a break from browsing. Resting in the shade, the goats regurgitate the partially digested food, called cud, from their stomach. They bring the cud back to their mouth and thoroughly chew it. Chewing their cud stimulates the digestion process. It helps the goat extract the vitamins and minerals from their food. Goats can't chew their cud while they're active, so they need this downtime to properly digest what they've already eaten. If you're out for a walk in a park with goats and you don't see them actively feeding, they're likely resting someplace chewing their cud. Throughout the course of their day, the goats alternate, maybe 3 or 4 times, between browsing and chewing their cud. Another behavior you might see is goats climbing trees. Goats are very nimble and have an innate sense of balance. Their hooves have 2 sections that they can spread apart for a secure footing on these branches. What are the goats doing up a tree? Sometimes they may be looking for food. Perhaps they are keeping watch so they can alert the herd if they spot a predator. Maybe they're just playing. Whatever the reason, goats love to climb and stand on top of whatever they can find in their environment. If you watch goats for a while, you may see them headbutt. For younger goats, a headbutt is just a way to release energy and to play. For older goats, a headbutt may signal one goat's dominance over another goat in the herd. Of course, headbutting could just reflect the personality of the goat, too. The goat's skull is designed to withstand these headbutts. In fact, a goat's skull can withstand a force that's 60 times more powerful than the force that a human skull can withstand. Some people describe the faces of goats as cute. What I first noticed when I looked at their faces was their eyes. The eyes of a goat are unique and a bit unsettling if you haven't seen them before. Their pupils are horizontal rectangles, not circles like ours. Having a wide horizontal slit for a pupil enables goats to have a more panoramic view of their environment. They can see their surroundings much more clearly without being blinded by direct sunlight. Horizontal slits also open much wider, letting in more light. That enables goats to see better in dim light. Goats are prey to other animals. All these features of a goat's eye help it detect any dangers in its environment, especially spotting any predators that may be lurking about. While you're watching the goats, you may wonder whether you're looking at a male or a female goat. Unfortunately, you can't tell by looking at their horns. Both male and female goats have horns. As long as the goat is alive, the horns continue to grow. However, as the goat ages, the horns become thicker and stronger instead of longer. The horns help keep the goat cool in hot weather by dispersing their body heat into the atmosphere. I'm now hiking a trail through a part of the forest where goats have eaten the invasive species and the underbrush. You can easily see how much more open this part of the forest is compared to the trail I was hiking earlier. Now our native vegetation will have an easier time reestablishing itself. Goats, like those you see here, damage, but not necessarily kill, the buckthorn. Natural resource managers use goats in combination with other tools, like forestry mowers and herbicides, in the battle against buckthorn. But goats are still the most fun to watch. I hope this video inspires you to have your own goat encounter. Taking a walk in a park, with or without goats, is good for both your body and your brain. Even if you don't encounter any goats along the trails you walk, I hope you'll learn about invasive species and about the role of goats in combating those invasive species. Continuing to learn is good for the aging brain.